Today we're going to be talking about two verb combinations and how to naturally use infinitives in Spanish. So first let's start with a rule. When we have two verbs back to back, the first verb will be conjugated and the second one will stay in infinitive form, typically. Now I say typically because this isn't always the case, and I'll show you guys an example at the end of when it wouldn't be the case, but usually it's going to be the case. Now first let's talk about what exactly an infinitive is. An infinitive is the most basic non-conjugated form of a verb. Now that sounds like a whole lot of mumbo jumbo right there, right? But basically let me break this down for you. So when I say the most basic non-conjugated form of a verb, what I mean is that it is just the action itself. So when we do conjugations, when we change the verb in Spanish, if you remember, it reflects two things. It reflects who's doing the action and when the action's happening. But in this case, infinitives, we don't change them at all. And so this is going to be its verb still with its AR, its ER, its IR. And this is just the most basic form, just the action itself. We don't know who's doing it, we don't know when it's happening, just the action itself. So for example, if we look at these words, you can see they still got their AR and their ER on there. So these are all infinitives right there. Now, one thing that's good to note is that this rule right here is actually the same in English. And so it tends to be a little bit easier to remember this rule when you kind of understand exactly what's going on in English as well. So let's take a look at some examples of using these two verb conjugations in Spanish. Now these are typical words and common verbs to use these two verb combinations because essentially what they do is they set up these combinations. So let's talk about what each of these words mean. Poder means to be able to, or can. So for example, if I were to say I'm able to, or I can, that would be poder. And let's take a look at an example first in English and let's translate it into Spanish. So we'll say this: I can swim. Or the better way to say this would be I am able to swim. I am able to swim. So in order to translate this into Spanish, what we first have to do is we have to conjugate poder. We have to show that I am being the one able to, right? To show that I can. So what we do, take the word poder. It's also a stem change, so it goes to UE, so puedo. That's how you say I can or I am able to. And then now you can see what we have is to swim. We don't say I am able, I swim. We say I am able to swim. We're just saying the action itself. It's not implying anyone doing the swimming, carried within the verb to swim. We're just talking about the action itself. And because of that, it's going to stay in infinitive form. So you can see in English it stays in infinitive form in the sense that it's still just the action itself, not with anyone doing it. And so in Spanish it's going to be the same. To say to swim in Spanish, we say nadar. Puedo nadar. I can swim. Or I am able to swim. Take a look at another one. To want, querer. To want. So for example, if I were to say, you want to eat. You want to eat. So once again, what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to take the word querer, put it into the to form. It's also an E to IE stem change. So quieres. And then to eat in Spanish, comer. Once again, we're not saying you want you eat, we're saying you want to eat, just the action itself. There's no person being implied within it. There's no tense being implied within it. It's just the action. Because of that, it's going to stay in infinitive form. Now, deber means must. And so, for example, if I were to say, we must do our homework. A little bit longer of a sentence here. But if I were to say we must, we have to say we first. So we got deber, debemos, we must, and then do. You can see it's not we must, we do. It's just do, right? Just the action. So to do in Spanish, hacer. Debemos hacer nuestra tarea. So once again, you can see that two verb combination. Very important to keep in mind also the first one's always getting conjugated because we have to carry that information of who's doing it and when it's happening. But the second one's going to stay infinitive. Next one, saber, to know. So for example, if I were to say, they know how to, let's say, write. They know how to write. Say ellos saben. It can just be saben as well. And then to write, escribir. Now, an interesting thing too is that in Spanish they tend to cut out this how. They just say they know to write. In Spanish, in English, we always include this how, but in this case, usually it's just saber and then the infinitive. Finally, esperar, to hope. Could also be to wait, but in this case, to hope. If I were to say, I hope to work. I hope to work. Say espero, and then to work, trabajar. So overall, you can see that these two verb combinations, in the first one, it's always going to get conjugated in order to carry that information of who's doing it when it's happening. But the second one, never going to get conjugated. Just like how it works in English. Now we're going to go over a couple more combos, which is ir plus a plus infinitive and tener plus que plus infinitive. And so essentially, ir plus a plus infinitive means going to do something, or it's also known as the simple future. So for example, if I were to say, I am going to play, what we do is say voy a jugar. So you can see jugar staying in its infinitive form. Just basically puts this a in here just because that's the way that they say the simple future. It's added in. And then with tener plus que plus infinitive, to have to do something. So for example, if I were to say, we have to run, I could say tenemos, then we have to have that que, correr. And so with these two combos, it just adds the a and the que. It's just how Spanish is said. But then with these ones up here, you don't need anything between the two verbs. So overall, that's the two verb combinations, but I just wanted to show you real quick an example of when we wouldn't use this. And it actually makes sense because it's the same in English. So for example, if I were to say, I work, we'll say this, when I work, we make money. When I work, we make money. Cuando trabajo, it's going to stay in present. No subjunctive here because it's me working overall. That's a little advanced though. We make money. Ganamos dinero. So real quick, can you think of the reason why in this case it's not going to be an infinitive? Why in this case this one's going to be actually conjugated? Well, the reason why is because you can see when I say when I work, cuando trabajo, we make, or we earn, I should say, we earn money. Ganamos is carrying information within it. You know, it's saying we earn, right? In this case, it's not saying when I work to earn money. We say when I work, we earn money. Cuando trabajo, ganamos dinero. And so in this case, it's going to be conjugated because we know who's doing it. We're basically switching up the subject in this case. But up here, you can see it's to swim, to eat, to write, to work. Because of that, it's going to stay in infinitive form. So overall, if you need to know the difference, just think about it in English first, and then translate it over into Spanish. So that's two verb combinations in Spanish. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.